Hey there, I'm going to do a dirty pour today. Well, I'd say flip and drag maybe. That's a better term for it. Not something I typically do that often. So I wanted to give it a try. And I'm going to work with a canvas that is 16 by 20. I have push pins on the back side of it, and after I mix my colors, I'm going to put white on this so that I can put my cup on it and drag it. I'm going to put just regular, it's white paint in a bottle, and I've also got a bigger bottle mixed up, and it's white and Floetrol 50-50, just a 1-to-1 ratio, and that's what I'm going to do with all the colors. And then I add a little bit of water to make it the right consistency. So I bought a little set of Masters Touch. It was $11 at Hobby Lobby, and it was an 8-pack, and it's less than an ounce of each paint, and I used my coupon. But these are pearlescent, and I don't know that they have the individual colors. Like, here's a tube of Masters Touch that comes from Hobby Lobby. It's $4, and it's 4 ounces. So it's the equivalency of 2 craft bottles that are usually 2 ounces each. So, but it's a thicker paint, and it's a better grade of paint as far as more of an artist grade. So they have some pearlescents in a little sample pack. So I've got yellow, and it's definitely got a shimmer to it. It's like a pearly shimmer. There's orange. They call it green. I call it more of a lime green. They call this rose, but I call it hot pink. And purple. I don't know if it shows the shimmer in the lighting or not, but and blue. And this was a white pearl color. They also had the black. They just call it pearlescent black. I'm going to save this for another project. But like I said, these are like less than an ounce. They're 0.7 ounces. So I'm going to put this aside for another project. And I like these colors. I want it to be like real springy and cheerful colored. But I wanted to use Viridian, which is a really neat color that's like a pale turquoise or whatever. And it's not pearly, it's regular. So I have some Liquitex Iridescent Medium that I had gotten in the past. And I'm going to add this. And I don't know. It doesn't tell you how much to do. It just says you can thin it with water up to 30%. So I'm going to put in probably almost as much as there is paint as the iridescent medium, which is the pearly look. And that doesn't look shimmery, so I'm going to add more. So we're going to probably obviously have more of this color than we do the rest. So there's a big difference. I might add a little bit more, but I'm not going to use all this up. This is not cheap stuff. The Liquitex stuff, the mediums are not cheap for any of them, the pouring mediums or any of it. I do love their gloss varnish, and I use it quite often, and it goes a long way, but it is expensive. So anyway, I've got some pearlescent medium in that. But I just wanted to show you what it looked like. It's a box. It was on the end of an aisle. It wasn't in the aisle with the paints. It was at the end of an aisle with a bunch of craft sets. And that's where I found this pearlescent tubes. So my typical ratio with any thing I've been doing here lately is 1 part paint to 1 part Floetrol. And that's my big jug here, Floetrol latex based. And because this one has so much paint, these are 5-ounce cups. These are 5 ounces that I'm using. This one's going to have way more than the others. But you basically just mix in your Floetrol with your color. You do this first before you add any water. This way the Floetrol and the paint can bind together first, and then you add your water afterwards. And you want it to pour off your stick like warm honey. And this is dripping off my stick. It's not nearly thin enough. And I have my bottle of H2O. I'm just going to do this one for you, and then the others I'm going to add the Floetrol to the color, and there'll be less than 1 ounce for each one, and add the water, because these are thicker paints because they have the iridescent medium in them, and because they're in tubes. They come out much thicker than what you get out of a bottle, so I'm definitely going to have to add water to each of these as well to make them more fluid. And there's a clump right there, and I know that's Floetrol. But I can always see, when I'm stirring my paints, I can always see Floetrol if it clumps up. People complain that their Floetrol gets real clumped up and they have to strain it. And I've never strained my Floetrol. And I wonder oftentimes if it's the temperature that the Floetrol is stored in. Possibly mine is in my home, so it stays at a pretty even keel temperature of, 72 to 74 degrees, something like that. I'm wondering if their Floetrol is getting too warm or too cold, and that might make it do funny things inside the jug. But I have never had to strain my Floetrol. But I can usually, if I'm stirring it, I can usually see it off of my stick. It'll be clumped up on my stick, and that's how I discover it. So you can see that kind of, it pours off the stick in a stream. That's what you want. So I'm going to add Floetrol first to all these, stir it, and then add the water. And I'm going to speed through that process, and we'll be back in a minute. I also keep a small bottle of Floetrol if I just need a little. Okay, I've got all of my colors mixed with the Floetrol and water. And like I said, tube paints that are in the tubes are so much different from a bottle of craft paint. I typically use another brand, and they're very fluid, and when you put something in from a tube, it's thick and creamy and rich, and you have to add, even though you're doing the same ratio of Floetrol, paint to Floetrol, 1:1, you have to add a lot more water. But it's still not, I would say it's 10% water maybe. It's still not a lot. And I was just going to note that the white, which is really kind of a cream color, it's pearl. It's a pearl color. It's really pretty. The white that I'm going to use on the canvas is a brighter white than this. The white pearl is like a creamy pearl. The blue looks very pearly. The orange looks very shimmery and pearly. The yellow, not so much. I guess it does look a little pearly. These were the colors I like the least as far as how they mixed up. Like the purple has almost a little bit of a more, it's not glitter, but it has that effect of, you see more particles of whatever it is that they put in it to make it give the shimmer. The green you can barely see, but it's kind of shimmery. And the pink is, I would say it was probably the least thick of all the colors for some reason. And you can see the shimmer in it, but seeing that there's a little clump of Floetrol on the end of my stick. And so this is my foil baking pan that I use all the time, that once you have your drips dry in it, you can peel it right out and use it over and over. You don't have to replace it. And I have silicone, and that's traditionally what I use is silicone. But I've really enjoyed the coconut milk. It smells super good. It doesn't smell like coconut. I'm not a big coconut fan, but it smells really good. And I'm going to put a squirt into each cup. This is by OGX. It's Anti-Breakage Serum for your hair. Just a couple of swirls. That's it. They say less is more with silicone or whatever, and I'm notorious for bottles of paint, squeeze bottles, and me shaking them all the time and keeping paint stored in them. And so I have a lot of sales, but a lot of times they can be smaller. So with it being a fresh batch of mixed paint, hopefully it will be some bigger sales. So I'm going to move these this way. We might as well. I might as well just go ahead and pour the cups that I'm going to dump. And I know when I have mixed paints up and the colors together, I do not like green and orange together. They make a very not pretty color, almost brownish, So I don't ever want my green and orange to kind of be mixed on top of each other. So I may do it in more of a kind of a rainbow colored. Ooh. I'm also notorious for knocking over my things. So if I go in that order, I think that'll pretty much work. Kind of the rainbow colors. So I'm going to be pouring on white, but whatever's at the bottom when you flip is going to be what kind of comes out on the top of your colors. And I'd like this white pearl to show up a little bit then. So I'm going to start and I'm using 5 ounces for both of these, and I'm going to fill them up. And I'm going to do one canvas, and if I have enough, I might do a second one. So let's go. And it's amazing how when you do this, you might pour the same way, and each, you know, cup will come out totally different looking. That's the wonderful part about acrylic pouring, is that you kind of never know what you're going to get. It's always kind of a big surprise when you're doing a dirty pour, at least. That's pretty in the cup though. That purple is kept rising to the top though. This doesn't have any silicone in it, and I'm going to actually just put a little bit of the bright white on the top of both of them. Okay, so now we're going to move this out of the way. Put these aside. Gonna put my gloves on. I also have a link underneath the video in the comments section that will be the Amazon link, and it's suggestions for different products, and you can find pretty much everything I use on that Amazon link. So I'm going to put a layer of white. This is just a plastic scraper. Some people use their hands, some people use like a spatula from a cake icing tool. I don't have one of those. I may get one at some point, but this works pretty fine for me, so. And yeah, if you have bubbles, the easiest way to pop them is a torch or heat gun. I use a heat gun. This is 1500 watts, and believe it or not, it doesn't get like super hot. Okay, so my plan. See if you can see the pearly colors. I don't know how well you can see it. Is to flip and drag it. So if I can do this wet canvas without making, I don't know if I can. We'll do it this way. On the color theory, it's very orange to make, orange, it's very easy to make a brownish color if you get your opposite colors with each other, like red and green, or green and orange, like blue and yellow make green, pink and yellow make orange, red and blue make purple, so pink and blue would make purple. But you have the issue of, you know, if they blend too much, they're going to make a brown color. So there's kind of a suction here going on. I've always wondered how people drug something through. So that did not work as I planned it to. I like it, but I thought I was gonna, it was sticking to the canvas, the suction was. And the coconut milk does make some pretty cells. You know, you've got some pretty good sized cells going on, so I do like that about the coconut milk. Like orange and blue, they're opposites, and when they come together, they really dull themselves down. So that's like one thing you have to be careful of. This orange is really strong, you can tell. I love the orange and green effects. See, now this one is coming out totally different looking, but I'm also pouring it. I didn't flip it. Actually, I wanted to leave a little bit of the white negative space. This right here is too dark to me. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just go straight through it. I would say don't be afraid if there's something that you don't like. To adjust it, you know, if you can change it, then try to change it. And I lost a lot of the cells, but I kind of like this jagged kind of pattern for this one. You know, I do love cells. There's no question in my mind. I love cells. And swiping with another color is an easy way to cover an area that is kind of loud to you, or just doesn't, you don't like the way it works into the scheme. Just kind of pour it into the area, and that way you can kind of camouflage the areas that you're not crazy about. I love this area here. That's probably my most favorite. So I'm going to leave it where it is. And I like this end because it's pouring off the edge of the canvas, but over here it's mostly white. So just making sure that there's white on the edges where it doesn't, where the color doesn't go over. And if the color goes over, I like it left that way. I like the color to flow over if it wants to. You can kind of roll your finger over the edges sometimes to bring that color pattern down over the edges and kind of continue what it's doing up on the top part. This is not bad. I'm not like totally in love with it, but it is very shimmery, and I don't know if you can see the shimmery part of it or not. Right there is kind of my favorite area. All that, the turquoise and the jaggedness of the colors. So there that is.